trying to determine blow, exactly, which is why I got these different thicknesses of felt. So I've got a really thick one there. I've got, let's see, so a thin one, a really thin one, and kind of medium, that little green one, because I don't know what we're going to do. Okay, so we're going to use C2, C4, and C6 as our samples. And on the samples, temporarily remove the front rail felt, making your dip unnaturally deep, right? So Victoria, you want to come do that? Okay, why, anybody know why we're doing that? Why we're removing the front rail felt on C2, C4, and C6? To make the dip unnaturally deep, so it's like way, way too much. It's really just to ensure that the key goes through the cycle. Otherwise it's blocked, like you were saying, or like Jordan was saying, to get it out of the way. So so dip might occur, or sorry, let off might occur below where, you know, if your dip is right there, let off might occur here, right? So you remove that felt, so now your dip is like there, and your let off still stays at that same place. So you lower that key, let off occurs. You just make sure that it happens at first. Okay? So, okay, you've got the, yep, there you have them taken out. All right, the next step is to set your let off samples to 1/8 of an inch with a magnet. Has that been done?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Let's look at it. Yeah, that's right. That's right. We pull the back checks as well out of the way so that they're just, again, so that they're not giving you like a false reading. So we can pull them way out of the way. It doesn't really matter how much. I mean, that's plenty right there. Okay, they're way out of the way. Yep, that's perfect. Now remember that we just want it to kiss the magnet, right? We don't want it to bear against the magnet, because what's the problem with if it's actually pushing against the magnet, which can be tempting. Yeah. It's, if the magnet weren't there, it would be less than 1/8 of an inch.
It would block.
That's, it could if it's bearing.
If the magnet is there.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, all three of those are perfect. Nicely done, Victoria. Okay. Then we're going to replace the front rail felt on all three of these. So we only did that just for that one step. Again, just to be sure that we're not getting a false reading, or make sure that it goes all the way through. So this the samples, that's the only time that we actually use the dip lock, because the samples tell us where to put the let-off rail, which is the whole purpose of this section 2. And so once we get the let-off rail where we want it, we don't use the dip lock again, right? We're gonna regulate our dip with the aftertouch gauge. So we still regulate our dip, but we're not using the dip lock. We're using the aftertouch gauge to do it. Okay. You want to be consistent, right, on how hard you hit it, like a good mezzo forte blow. Because if I play fortissimo blow, now I'm way low. If I play a pianissimo blow, now I'm a bit high, right? Because we have some sponginess in the felt, which is, again, is why 3/1000 of an inch is ridiculous. Okay, right now, when it bottoms out on the, see, I'm not pushing on it, but I definitely can feel the friction on there. So, and it's definitely not letting off. In fact, if I pull it off, if I pull it out altogether, it's not really letting off either.
Because it had a bunch of other functions for adjusting dip.
Well, but we want, right.
Yeah, probably should.
So like I was saying, you can always get the right aftertouch, pretty much regardless of what the other specs are. But you have to get the specs correct. Like you have to get the specs within the ballpark. So you know, here again, we could get a good aftertouch reading by fudging the dip or by fudging the let-off. What would we have to do to the let-off right now where we have no aftertouch currently? And let's say we decide that we're going to get our aftertouch by changing let-off. What would we have to do?
You'd have to drop the let-off button.
Drop the let-off button correctly. Correct. So it's going to let off earlier, which gives you a little bit of aftertouch. But we already know that our let-off is correct, so that's not an option. We could also get our correct aftertouch by changing the dip. What would we have to do to get our correct aftertouch by changing the dip? What would we have to do to the dip?
Increase the dip.
Increase the dip, correct. What's the problem with doing that?
That's too big.
Then it's too much, right? Because we're already in the ballpark. We're already at 10 millimeters. So we know that both the let-off and the dip are within where we need it to be, correct. So the only thing left is to change the blow, right? Okay, it's not remember, I say this all the time, it's not changing the blow distance that affects our aftertouch, but it's changing the blow distance that makes it so you have to change the capstan. Okay. All right. Oh, actually, we should. How do I know that I want to decrease the blow and not increase the blow? I mean, because I could do one of two things. I could either decrease the blow by putting that in, or I could increase the blow by removing these felt going thinner. How do I know that? I should have asked you. How do I know that I want to decrease the blow?
The key wasn't going to the full cycle at the blow that it was currently at, so you need to decrease it. So
Right. So what he said is the key isn't going through the full cycle. It doesn't have any aftertouch. And actually what was happening is the jack wasn't even starting to come off of the hammer butt. And so we know that to increase our aftertouch, we decrease the blow, right? And you can actually say that about all three let-off, dip, and blow. To increase the aftertouch, we increase the let-off, though we don't want to do that because we want to stick with it 1/8 of an inch. Same with dip. It's like let-off. To increase your aftertouch, you increase your dip. But we don't want to do that because we already have it. So the only one left, the third variable is our blow distance, and that one is the opposite. To increase our aftertouch, we decrease the blow. Okay. For now, you can memorize it, but it'll start to just like kind of marinate in your brain, and you'll get it, and you'll be able to think through it, and you won't have to just rely on things that you've memorized, but you'll just know it. You'll know it mechanically, not just as rote memorization. Okay. So we've decreased our blow. Now let's so we're just experimenting, right? We don't really know how exactly this piano is going to respond to a given, so I'm just guessing on that. So that's about, okay, if I check that, the hammer's still following, which means it's resting on the rest rail, right? That might be slightly on the tight side. You'll just, okay, now let's check. Okay, we definitely have aftertouch right there. I'm going to put 30 thousandths in there. And right there, it's touching. I can feel the friction of the underside of the hammer, or the key. Okay, got the friction. Now if I look in at the jack, as soon as I feel, okay, so the jack is not letting off, but if I pull that out, there it goes. So I would say we're right about, like if I compress it, right? We compress the felt. We can make it let off. But if I just barely touch it, there's
What thickness of aftertouch are you doing?
30.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, so that's where that one is. Our first sample. So I'm gonna say this one that I just took a stab at. It was a total guess. For that first sample note, it seems like this is a good area to put it. Which is, by the way, why we do 3 samples, because we just want to be triple sure that this is going to be the new location of the rest rail.
You always do 1 sample from each section?
Uh-huh. Yeah, because usually there's like an average. Kind of want to average it out. The location of the rest rail. And the correct place where I like to put my let off, my lost motion is right about there where if I kind of grab the note and sort of wiggle it, like I can just barely get that back check to wiggle without the catcher moving. Okay, everybody see that back check? I'm not lifting the key, but I'm letting it go up to its home position and just slightly pushing it down, so I can do that. Now everybody watch that hammer. Let's just double check. Okay, it's not really moving, so it is resting on the jack slightly. So I'm going to go down a little bit. Let's try that. Okay. Now that hammer is moving.
Which hammer are we looking at? That one.
Because that hammer is going to be resting on one of 2 things, right? It's either going to be resting on the rest rail or the jack. Jack is incorrect, rest rail is correct. It's the opposite in grands. Okay. Let's try our 30 again. I guess let's try 20. And what should it do with the 20 in there? Yeah, it should just barely. Yep. It is letting off. Can you see that? Let's try 40. It is letting off a little bit. Let's try 50. Okay, so that 50, I can compress the felt and make it let off, but it's not really letting off. So we're somewhere kind of, we're maybe a little bit higher. If the other one was like 25 or 30, this one's maybe more like, I don't know, 35 or 40, which, so right now it's measuring at 35 to 40 thousandths of an inch, which I'm going to say is just fine. We're still well within proper range. But if we wanted to bring that down to 25 or 30, which is what this one is, we increase the blow by getting a thinner. But it would change that one, exactly, which is why we get 3 votes. So what we could do is, well, let's see what this one votes.
Still letting off at 40.
Still letting off at 40.
Yeah,
Still letting
50.
off at 50. Okay.
Yeah,
So the first one told us that this was perfect, but then we got 2 votes for what? A little bit thinner. Yeah. So let's see what happens with this. A little bit thinner.
That must be why I see shins in the bass felt sometimes in these old pianos.
To try and compensate for uneven.
One section.
Okay, it's letting off with 20. This one is also letting off with 20, which is a good thing, right? This one is kind of, sort of letting off, but not quite, which is what you'd expect, right? Let's try 40. Definitely not. That, just by feel, it feels good. Let's try 40 here. It's kind of letting off. And then there, same thing, kind of letting off. So I think we're about there. I think that's getting us about where we need to be. Okay, so now we need 3 of these. So just make sure that you kind of dab to get the PVCE, or you can use the quick and thick too, just because you want to kind of work it in there. Otherwise it'll just absorb and then it won't really stick. Especially where you're gluing felt on felt.